Hi, Jan. Hi, Zane. How are you?
I'm all good, and you?
Yeah, doing well. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I sent you two files, which is the CM, Concept Modeling 04 and 05. And this is just to use as a reference. Actually, there's a mistake here in the placement of one of the sketches here, but we can fix it together. Did you all get these files?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, does any of the students have any difficulty accessing these files? You just can use it as a reference, just because this is all the way through the concept part, and I just wanted to make sure that we all are on the same page and have it. I don't know, as people are trickling in, we can start with any questions that you guys have from things we've already done that you perhaps need a little bit more help with. I'm quickly going to recreate the mass here so that you just see in case you haven't done it. And then we'll spend some time on the roof and also start a little bit on the advanced modeling topics. At least try to do the staircase and the blocks. And that will put us in a really good shape to spend the last two classes on things like visualization and 2D documentation. If there's time left, then we can get into more of a prototyping topics, but I wasn't expecting that we would be covering that anyways. But of course, the document is a living document. I'll give you all the models for the whole document, all the steps, and you guys can work on it on your own time as well, as even if the bootcamp is finished. Continue to comment, continue to ask questions. It's an open kind of invitation here. So yeah, let me know once we have all the participants, so we can get started on trying to do this. For now, just open the CM04 mass and then turn off the building layers. So we only have the site, and turn on the scaffolding, not the sketches, rather the mass part. This is what we've done in our last session, and just make sure that you have the named C-planes and set it up to be on the top. Double click the top so that you are really having your coordinate system relative to your site. Remember, if we do the world, this is where the world is, but this is not relevant to our modeling, so we'll just do the top, and this becomes, the basis for wherever our site is situated. And whatever the orientation is, then we can work really in a clean kind of relevant coordinate system, which is the model coordinate system. So are we all ready? It's almost 4:15, so let's get started, I say. And I'll just collapse the layers as well, and I'll generate and I'll create a new layer, and I'll call it I'll call it the house instead of building, and I'll call it walls. And we know that we can change the colors if we want certain colors for different parts, and call it floors. Perhaps put the floors on top here because that's probably going to be the first one we will create. Let's create another layer, call it windows. And this way we can place all the geometry, relevant geometry in these different layers. And at some point we can assign different material, we can turn them on and off. So it's much easier to organize your model in that kind of manner. Let's see the maybe the outdoor layer. It's not necessarily the exact namings under building. You can do it whatever that makes sense to you. Perhaps I'll have a layer for the fill. And then another layer for the roof. Okay, so. If I go too fast or if you need any repetition, just interrupt because I'm not watching the chat window. Just unmute your mic and jump in at any time. So in order to create the floors, we can use our reference. See, I selected the site and I can accidentally move it. So in order not to do that, I'm just going to, I'll go make my floors as current, and I will go ahead and lock the building site and the scaffolding, and the building is already turned off as a layer. So this way I can't select any of it, and I can't accidentally, you know, move it out of place. So this is one good way to continue to see your geometry without accidentally selecting it if you are not working within that layer. So I made my floors as my current, and now I will just create the first and second level floors. And if you can see, actually this is the first step, so switch to the top C plane just if you want to follow. So I'm going to use the box to create the floor slabs, and you can make it the thickness that is relevant to your standards. So we're just approximating here. So I'll use box command. And I'll use my, you know, one corner here. And the second corner will be here. I'll just, you know, consider that the deck is extending beyond the building itself. And the height, I can make it 0.15, for example, or 0.2. Press enter. And that's my first floor. Let's just change the color here for the floors to be brown so that it's easier to kind of see. I can repeat and create another floor to be, you know, and use my scaffolding. Once you have done the reference geometry, then it is relatively easy to start to generate your actual house because you have all the references that you need. This is the roof. I don't need to create any floors there. So that's basically all what I need to do in order to create my the curves. Now, in order to create the walls, I can just go and make the walls as my active layer. And I will basically select that. I want to select the rectangle, which is that scaffolding, and extrude up. But at this moment, just because I have it all locked, I cannot select it. So I can just unlock it and select that curve. As you can see, that curve actually starts from the bottom of the floor. So I'll make a copy here and copy it to be at the top of the first floor. And or the ground floor. Actually in the US they call it first floor, so I don't know, I don't get confused here. Now that I have that second rectangle that is on top, I'm just going to use extrude curve command and going to snap to the top floor here. Just like that, this wall has been created. All right. It's already in the right layer. If I click on it, you'll see it is in layer walls. And the reason is because the walls is the active layer. If it's not, just select it and change the layer to be in the walls layer. Okay. So now that the walls are there, all I need to do is to do the cylinder as the reference for the for my stairs, and I'll also copy, although it's only a reference, but I'll just have another one on the top of the floor and use that one as my reference to also extrude here, or use cylinder command if you want. I'll just extrude, and I'll extrude by 3 meter plus. I'm expecting the railing, for example, to be 1 meter high or 80 centimeters, so whatever you want. So I'll just set the height to be 3.8, and that's going to be my the cylinder for the stairs. Just because I didn't create any layer for it here, I can easily go to the walls, select that layer because I want to create a layer under it. I can call it stairs, and yeah, maybe change the color to orange just so that, and then change my extruded cylinder to be in the stairs layer. And there we have some kind of basic mass or geometry that represent the floors, the wall, and the stairs. Now, if we want to create some openings here, remember it's easy to draw on an opening or on a side of my building if actually my C-plane is aligned with it. So I want to go to the named C-planes and go to the front. And I will call my plan. And this way I can see and to draw parallel to my elevation. Now, let me just for a second here go back to perspective. So as you can see, the front is actually going through the center of my building. That's fine. I can still draw on that plane, and just remember to project it back, to project the geometry back to your front or wall in order to be able to use it to split the surface, that face, this one. So, or use some sort of a reference geometry that lays on that face to be able to draw your rectangle. So what I'll do is just call C plane. And all I'm doing is just, I'm going to move it to be at the center, because all I'm changing is the origin. So it's going to be just at the midpoint of my elevation here, right? So is that the mid? I just want to be sure here. Yep. And I want it to be here on the wall. So that's where my C-plane is, and this is where I now can go back and right mouse click to invoke my context menu to be able to have that view to easily draw any kind of openings I have here. So what I'll do is I'll draw a rectangle, and just roughly here, because I mean, what you want to do is, just have a place where your window is. If you want to accurately draw your rectangles so that it's certain dimensions, then you still can do that by specifying the width and the height. For now, I'll just pick maybe down the bottom here, point. If I have my smart track on here and I snap to that point, I can actually start seeing, you know, I can align with any direction that makes sense here, and I start snapping to certain locations. Just because I don't have any reference geometry, it's going to be hard. If I want to leave, say, 80 centimeters from each side, it's the best way is to say, draw a reference geometry, say a line, for example, here, from here, and 0.8 or 4, whatever the 8, for example. And this is where the line has been drawn, and it makes it easier for us to draw the opening there. And if we want also to have to leave some certain amount, say 1 meter from the top, it's also useful to draw a line here and also have it with length 1. And now I have my curve here. I'll be able to snap to it easily. It doesn't matter, even if it's not visible, it's there. Now when I draw the rectangle, make sure the smart track is there, because this is when you can snap to certain points long enough, and then it will activate by turning into white. Now, I want my rectangle to start from here, and I'm going to snap to the end and see how the white turned on. And now at the other end, I want also a 1 meter, you know, I want also an 0.8 from the edge. And it's kind of hard here because I don't have anything to snap to give me that reference. So I'll just estimate here to go there and then actually measure the distance from here to here, and it's 0.6 meters, so that's really not exactly what I wanted. So let me just draw a line from the end, and let's turn off the center. This is just snapping too much. 0.8 as a distance, and this is it. So now I have another curve. I'll just move it up so we can see it as a reference for me to be the end of my my rectangle. So with Shift and Control down, you can select only one side of your rectangle. And with the Move command, you can move it from the intersection to here just to ensure that we have that properly set up in terms of a distance. So this is the easiest way to do that. Of course, you know, you can start from the center and mirror and, you know, clean up your curves. But always when you have a reference geometry, this is helpful. If you know your dimensions, we know it's what, 24 meters width. Let's measure the distance here from one end to the other. 24 meters, and you just want to leave certain amount here. If your origin was at the corner here, then you know that you start your first corner of your rectangle, you know, starting 0.8 in the X, and then you want it to be, you know, the certain width so that it lands at that very corner there. So if you know your dimensions, this is one way to do it, but it's sometimes easier just to draw this reference geometry and snap to it, and then you can delete it or put it in the scaffolding. This helps you create a little bit more clean and accurate kind of geometry this way. Now that I have my rectangle, you know, if you're not happy with the dimensions, obviously you can change it. What I'll do is I will trim. Let me go back to my perspective so I can see better. See, I don't like how whenever I go to perspective, I end up, you know, in that kind of situation far away from my model. Let me change this to be the world top for now. And oh, see, my rectangle was created here to the front because I snapped to that corner. So that's easy enough. I'll just move that back from here to here, or project to that surface. Now it's in the right location, but what I want to create is to create a view that anytime I'm out of this view, I go back to that exact view. So the way to do that is, let's turn on the named views tab. And actually, we do have a couple of views that are easy to kind of snap to. It's already created in this. So if I double click on it, it just go to that particular view. If I want to look at the back of my model there, but if I want to add another view to look at the model from this angle, I can just go ahead and do save. And call it anything is like, you call it, we have one back perspective. So we have maybe side perspective, or whatever you want to call it, the right or left perspective, and say okay. And now this is created. So anytime I'm in a different view, say for example, I'm on a plan or something, I double click on the side view and I go straight here. As you know, the perspective command go to the world perspective, so the projections might not be favorable in our case. So now I have my rectangle. All I need to do is to split the wall. So I'll do split face or split command. So this is the face to split. And I will select curves, which is this curve, press enter. And now you can see that this polysurface has a new face added to it, which is this one. I can select this face. Actually, I can extract it. And once you split, in this case, if you don't use the split command, it becomes part of the polysurface that you have there. So let me repeat this and use the split command of Rhino and select the object to split, which is the extrusion. And the cutting object is my rectangle, press enter. And then this way, it actually separated it into two different objects. So let me just correct that in the document and actually just use split command instead of split face, because if you do split face, you will need to extract that surface out of the poly surface. Not hard, but it's an extra step. Now I have this and I can put it in my Windows layer. So instead of walls, I'll put it in Windows. And maybe in the Windows layer, just for clarity, I just want to change the color to be maybe turquoise. So this way I have this big back window. Of course, I can do the same here and add the entrance windows and side windows. So that's kind of up to you. We add these in details, but just to show you one way or a quick way to create that one big opening here. Remember, you can always select that and go to the user text and add a function, which is the area. And this will keep the area of your window. I mean, at any point, if you say scale your window, okay, this updates here, the area. And you will always have that information there. I can do the same with the walls. For example, I select the walls and then add a function, which is the area. There are more functions added in Rhino 7, like the volume, for example, but the area is available here and you can add it as well. So you keep track of the overall surface area that you have for your building. Now, at that point, it's, you know, I have a little bit of information here, and you can view my building using different kind of modes. If I want the rendered, turn off the scaffolding, and that rectangle curve, maybe put it in the scaffolding as well. So in the properties, put it in the scaffolding because, you know, this is where it should be. But as you can see, I can't quickly see the window through. So what I'll do is just, I'm going to click on under the material. Let me expand that a little bit. Under the material for the windows layer, I'm going to click on the material. And I will quickly just change it from plaster to glass and just go with the default. And that gives me just a quick glass to see through and help me visualize my mess a little bit, just so that I can see what's, you know, the two levels and, you know, the site and the slope and all that. So that's a really quick way to see some of the details real quick using applying materials to your layer. Okay, I'll go back to the ghosted view. And next, I'll just create some of the outdoor extensions, platforms and all. And this way we just see what kind of volume we need for the fill as well. And so the way to do that is I will just pick on some of these curves. For example, this one, I'll just be in the outdoor layer first. So with Shift and Control down, just this is to select a sub object. So because this is part of the flooring, but I just wanted that part of it. And I just want to extrude. Remember, click on that sphere thing. And maybe I just want to extrude out for, you know, whichever distance that I'm interested in. Perhaps, you know, I want 2 meters, just type 2. And, you know, this way, you know that this is the kind of, let me just do the shaded mode here. And because I just want to see if there is an intersection with the site as well. So I'll do the same here. I'm going to go Shift Control down, and I think I was selecting multiple things. So Shift Control, and on the sphere in the direction of the red arrow, I'll just type 2 so that I know this is the kind of distance that I want to go for. And so that creates this part. You can see that it is green in both sides, and that means that the normal direction is pointing downwards. It doesn't really matter much, but in my case, I want to change the direction. So type dir, direction, and then flip normal option and press enter. Oops. Flip the normal. Okay. Flip the normal option because there are multiple objects selected, so it's not just a flip. So wait. Direction, flip, press enter. And when I was selecting multiple objects, it didn't work as well for some reason. Let's just do direction as well. Flip, press enter. So now you can see that it's pointing upwards, and you can even see the colors in the U and V direction. I'm going to change the outdoors to a bit more bright color, like purple, so we can differentiate. Now that we have those, I think we need some extension to the back as well, or the front of the building. So I will select, subselect this curve, and this curve. Shift Control down. I have the 3 curves selected now, and I can extrude them in this direction, maybe by also 2 meters. You can see that I'm starting to intersect with my site here, and perhaps I'd want to extend it a little bit further until it's completely intersecting with the site. So I will repeat here, and I will just be sure I can shift control down with this curve. Of course, I mean, if you don't feel like doing this, you can just draw a line, full line from one end to the other. Select that line and extrude it if it's kind of easier. So let's just go a lot more like a 4. And this way we can see that the intersection with the site is showing with this the color difference here. And I'll also change the direction of it, flip it again. So that's kind of starting to form some of the platforms surrounding my building. Perhaps I want to extend this part. So shift control down and just move it without picking on the sphere here. Well, no, actually I'll extrude it by 1 meter. And I'll just go 1. And I'll show you why I wanted to extrude it, because I want to select or sub-select that part to create the stairs from it. So again, direction. And you see how when we specify the direction of our, assign different color for the back face, it's very easy to see if it's back face green, and then we immediately can fix that. Now, as for the other side here, we will start also a stairs here or a slope to go down into the site. Now, okay, so for the front and the side balconies, as you can see here, I refer to using an ortho snap so that we can do the angle of our extrude the curves to generate the stairs more easily. So if we go to right-click on ortho and set ortho angle, make sure it is set to 30. If not, just click on it or go to settings, and that will open the options for the ortho, and then you can set the ortho snap every 30 degrees because we will set up our, the stairs to be over 30-degree angle, so that really make it much easier. Now, if I am facing my building, I can easily extrude this in 30 degrees. So I'll change my C-plane to be the front. You can see and say extrude. You can see that I can extrude in that direction in the vertical direction, but I can change the direction to be, snapped to any point there. Is, and I'm just halfway the height of the floor. So in order to do that, I need to kind of snap to some sort of a mid-vertical point of the floor, and I have one. I have it in the scaffolding here. So let me change this to the ghosted mode, and let's see if the scaffolding is turned on here. You see these points that we created. Let me turn off the parts that I don't care for much at this point, which is the walls, the stairs, the window. So I can see through And you can see that I want this extension to go all the way to be mid-height of the floor. So how can I do that? Do I have really a midpoint reference somewhere here? I mean, I have midpoint reference there. Perhaps I can snap to the mid of it, so that's what I'll do.
Rajaa,
I hear somebody. Yeah.
How do you do that extrusion along the angle?
Okay, good. Yeah, good question. So let me turn off the floors here so that I can see a little better here. So when you select a curve that you want to extrude, you go extrude curve, right? And by default, the curve go to you know, certain direction, which is relevant to your C-plane typically. And if you want to change the direction, there is the direction option, and it prompts you to select 2 points, right? So the first point, I'll select it from the top here, corner. And because my ortho is set up to be every 30 degrees, you can see the guides. Like if I move my cursor closer to angle 30 or 60, it actually shows. And you can immediately say, okay, this is the kind of angle, which is the 30-degree angle that I'm interested in. And then you are locked to that direction from that point on. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. So now I'm sort of feel like I want to go plan view. And you know that plan command is actually a command that you can run inside other commands. And this is why when I typed a plan here, I changed my view to plan to be parallel to my C-plane, just so that I have a better visual into where am I going to snap to be able to, I'm in the middle of the command still, but and with the extrusion, I'm not really having anything, any reference that is good enough. But what I'll do, I'll just end it somewhere here, and then I can trim it later just when I have the proper midpoint of my floor. So my floor is, if I go draw a line here from the top of this floor to the top of that floor, that basically is my curve that I'm interested in. And the midpoint of my curve, so I can go point from the middle. And this is where actually it should have ended my my slope. So I'll just draw a line here from here to here, just so that I have that intersection happening that I can look at. To use the cutting object, which is this line, press enter, and then just trim out the rest of it. If I go to my perspective view and I'll just want to go here, you can see that it didn't matter if that line was away from my slope, my surface. It did cut it because it just really basically looks at it from the angle I'm looking at it, which was the plan view, and it was parallel to my my front. And this is basically what how I was able to kind of trim it at that point. If I had a reference going, no, I don't. So that direction, and maybe I have it for 1 meter distance. And then I'll just go back and perhaps I can copy that, and with Shift and Control and copy command, I can copy that part of the stairs and to the lower part, and that should do it. All right. If it doesn't, you know, you can just extend it basically So extend surface, and you extend it to intersect with your platform. So that's kind of easier because once there is an intersection, you can trim this out with trim command, and you select your perhaps floor. Let me turn it on as my cutting object, and I trim out whatever additional that I created geometry in terms of my stairs. Press enter. And this way it just really lands where it needs to. And I can, you know, go ahead and merge all the parts together by selecting them with Shift down. Select all these different parts. And I can join them together. If I want to clean it further, I can run merge all faces command, merge all faces. And this way I don't see all the different edges. You know, if I select it and turn off the ISO, you can see that this is just a simple surface now, all together, or poly surface, and these are the different faces of it. Of course, we still have to create this, and you know, if we have a line here, I'll show you another way to use this to create the other slope. And I'll just go ahead and go to the side C-plane and pre-select this curve and go extrude. And I'll just type plan here so that I'll look at it from the side. You can see it's extruding downwards. I want to change the direction to be from the base point here. And the same, I can have a reference guide pointing to the 30-degree, and I can lock to that direction. I'll just pull it really down here. It didn't go all the way. Let's go back to the named view here. Which direction did it go? Oh, I have the direction, but wow. This kind of snapped into the other direction there. Let me just delete this. I'll just do this again. Select the curve, extrude curve. And the direction will be from this point. And let's see if it is gonna snapping somewhere useful here. Again, I'm not able to specify the direction properly. So let me see. Oh, when I changed the view to the side perspective, it remembers I want to change that back to be the side. And that really gives me a much better kind of alignment to be able to do the extrusion. So I'll do extrude curve again, select the curve, and be in your point in space. I'm just not going to do the smart track or OSNAP, just the ortho. And it just really it's a reference for the direction of your extrusion. 1 point, second point, and now it basically you can extrude it in the 30-degree direction. I was snapping to different geometry, and this is why the extrusion direction was going out of sync with what I want. Now it will be easy for me to trim my curve or the slope with the site itself. But remember, we lock the site, so I'll just unlock it here, the building site. So I can select it as my cutting object. Again, trim. This is the cutting object, and this is the object that I want to trim. Press enter. This is useful if you want to just stay with the contour of your site. Of course, you can also do an intersection here with the site, so you can trim again your platform part, and this way you can have it align with the site this way. So once I have my roughly there, I'll just need to join this with that, the new one again. Let's go to maybe rendered, and you can see that there are these gaps in between here that I need to fill. So the way to create the fill is to extrude these surfaces down and intersect or Boolean against the site itself. So that's the method I'm going to use. I'm going to just turn off the scaffolding here. So curves, CRV. Cell curve, select all the curves you have, and all these are reference curves, so I'm going to move them to the scaffolding mass as well, so that I don't have to worry about them. I'll go to the shaded mode here, and perhaps I'll go back to my top. The parts that I want to extrude downwards are this surface and this surface with, but I don't want to extrude this. So I select it as a sub-object selection with Shift and Control. And then I'll do extrude surface and just extrude them vertically down, you just want to, I probably exaggerated here. I extruded a bit too much. Perhaps I didn't need to extrude that much, but I just wanted to be sure I have this extruded. I'll just do cap command as well to make sure it's all became a solid here. All right, so this is it. And I can see something funny going on here is the direction of it. But I still see this to be funny. Let me take it out and see what's going on here. Oh, so when I extruded it, it's just because these top surfaces remained like that, and it remained as part of the original object, the platform, because I basically extruded these surfaces down, and that wasn't supposed to be the way to do it. Let me, and they are all joined together. So let me explode, because I just need part of it, which is this part and this part. Let me extrude that first. So extrude the surface, extrude surface, and make it solid, and do not delete my input. And that's maybe one of the other things that I lost my input as well. So yeah, that's better. Now my platform are intact, the surface, and now I created a new geometry here down the bottom to be able to use as a fill. I do the same with this part because it wasn't joined. I'll just extrude down, extrude surface, and just make sure it's solid. Do not delete your input, and just extrude it down to generate your surface. You can Boolean union those two. And now I have that really gigantic fill that intersect with the site all the way through that I don't really need it. I didn't need it to be that big, but you can make it as big as you want so that it's, you know, basically you are sure to have it intersect all the way through. And it doesn't matter really, you know, even if it's big, because what we will do a Boolean split. So the poly surface we want to split is this poly surface, right? And we want to use the site itself to split it. So press enter, delete the input, yes, and press enter. And the cutting part is the site itself. So that will split it into 3 parts. This part, we don't need it. And there is another part which is inside the site. And there is the last part, which is that fill part that we will actually need. So I'll just select that part and delete it as well because I don't need it. All we need is this, and we can move it to the fill part. Okay. So that's the kind of fill that we needed, and we can measure the volume of our fill, and it's roughly 46 cubic meter here, or 47. All right. So that's how we create that fill, and we do have these platforms that we can also just create a rough railing out of by sub-object selecting the edges here and extruding it up a little bit by, say, 0.8. And this way you can see some sort of a beginning of a railing. I'm just going to change the direction to make it consistent here. And I can join them together. Of course, you can add any amount of detail at that point. I'll do the same here with this part. With Shift and Control down, and then using the arrow with the sphere part, 0.8, and join them. Okay. Control Z. It actually joined the original surface that I created. Let me just lock the site at this point. And where is the railing? This is it. The surface, this one, and this one, and this is what I want to join. When you join, notice that one of them was flipped. Following the first object that you selected, all the rest of them, the joined ones, will be flipped to match the same direction. So it will be a consistent kind of direction. Perhaps I needed another one here to extrude curve and extrude it all the way to be able to snap 0.8. And yeah, perhaps even this side. So at that point, it's just a matter of just add the amount of detail that you are interested in, and 0.8. Oh, that's not a no. 0.8 minus. Oh, it's in the other direction. And yeah. So I'll just select this with this and join. So again, this is just roughly turn on the walls, stairs, windows, and as you can see that, you know, even with perhaps the rendered view, we have a quick idea of what our building look like, and you know, all the outdoors as well, you know, just as a simple mass. Is there any question in relation to that so far? I mean, just with creating this simple mass, we used all kind of extrusions, Boolean operations, everything, sub-object selection. So there's just a repeated type of commands, but you know, this is you will see that we keep using the same set of commands basically to create these things. Any question? No? We're good? Okay, so so the next step would be to generate the roof surface. Now that we have the house or the building created, just to complete our mass concept, we just want to create that top surface, freeform surface for the roof. So I'll just collapse here some parts, the building site and there. And I'll just go back to the ghosted view. And perhaps I don't want to see the house itself, or cannot turn it off because it's the default. So let me just make the scaffolding as my current layer and turn off the building itself, because this is the kind of references that I need to use. And one of the things that is placed in the scaffolding is our sketches. You know, we have a sketch of the top and the side view and the front view of our surface. And we can bring the sketches and locate them in the proper locations, except if I hide those two, oops, the front and the top, I'll hide. You'll see that the side is kind of flipped because this is this should be on that direction. So it's the fix is easy. Just rotate 180 degrees relative to the just midpoint here of your sketch. So I'm not able to snap because I have turned off my O snap. I'll turn on my O snap, and I use the midpoint to rotate 180 degrees. And that will flip my sketch so that I can reference it more properly. As you can see, I put it up to scale and relative to my building, and I can show the rest of the sketches there. So you can do the same. You can just flip the picture so that we can reference it more properly. Now I'll just lock this, the sketch itself, and I'll create a scaffolding for the roof, and I'll just add another layer, call it the roof, just because it's kind of special. And I'll have a different color layer, red, so I can see it a little bit more properly. So now I'll just go to plan view, and I can see the top of my roof, the outline of my roof, and it's not aligning perfectly, but I have my scaffolding to align with if I need to. So if I draw just half of it, I can mirror to generate the other half. For the most part, we will just need to create just half of it, and the other half will basically, even the surface, we can mirror it. So use the curve command, and the degree 3 is good. And I'm going to do that back curve. I'll just make sure I'm current in the roof part, and I'll just roughly start to kind of trace. And as you can see, just because I have the snap here, the O snap, I keep snapping to the ends here, which I'll just not want to do. I'll just turn off the O snap and just have a go first without it, and curve. And you see the ortho as well. That's also limiting me. Turn off the ortho. And now you can start trying to kind of trace your curve. And you can always select it. And as you can see, I'm sure that it's drawn on the C-plane. Like, let's change the view to be perspective. And as you can see, this is drawn onto the a plane, the C-plane, which is down there. So what we can do is just project it to the picture plane. Oh, I basically locked it. Let me unlock it and select this, and that will basically project it onto that plane. So don't worry if you are snapping certain points, and as long as you're looking at it from the plan view and it look right to you, you can always project it to whatever plane that you need it to be projected to. Now I'll draw again the other part and repeat the curve command. Snap to the end, so I'll just need to turn on my snap at this time. And basically it's a matter of tracing. I just want to be sure that I end with the end of that line. And again, I can project my curve to my sketch so that it's aligned properly. If you need any adjustment, you can always select the curve and adjust the control points to be roughly matching what your sketch or intended curve to be looking like. So that is close enough, and it's covering the whole top of my building. I can mirror, or first I can join those two with join and mirror along that axis. As you can see here, they don't really overlap properly here. See how they kind of cross over? I can trim, use trim command, and cutting object, both of them, both curves are the cutting objects proper here. Now you can, yeah, I'll leave the curves as is for now. These are the two curves. And if we go to the perspective view, perhaps we can use our named views. Yeah, you can see that this is the tracing of the top part. Now, the second trace that I need to generate is the side of my building. So I'll just change my to the side, the C-plane, and do plan view. And you can see that the sketch that I see is the one that is on the side. Is you know that the floor is down there. We can see it. So this is where it is. This is the sketch itself. So I'll lock it so I don't accidentally move it, and also again create a curve to trace the top of my building or roof. So there. And remember, it's just a rough estimate of, and remember we want to end to the end of this line, so you can snap to it as well. And you can always project to C-plane if you want to be sure. Delete the input, yes, to be sure that you have created it there, or you're supposed to see. If I choose perspective, this is where it went, but if I go to the named view and go to my to the perspective I'm interested in, you can see that the curve was created and projected to the C-plane, which was the to the side C-plane, right? So now that I have, you know, these curves created, and actually I didn't need to mirror just yet. I'm just going to delete that because I will create the wing of one side and then mirror it after that. So I still need to do some adjustments here. As you can see in the handout, I need to adjust my curve to be following roughly the contour of the front now. So I'll need to move the control points down a little bit and adjust them for the top curve to be aligned vertically. So I'll change my C-plane to be front and go plan view, right? And this will help me move these curves vertically there following this. So this is the curve I'm adjusting the control points for. I'll go points on, and these are the control points of my curve, right? As you can see, it goes more in this sketch, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'll just stick, that's the curve point. So I don't know which one of them is the one that I need. So it would have been helpful to have more than one view open. So I set this to be set view to be perspective, perhaps. I'll just make this much smaller. Zoom selected. And this way I know when I'm selecting a point here, I know which one it is up there. I'll just make those smaller. And so now if I need to move that tip point, I can select it in the perspective view here, but I can move it in the front view here, because in the plan view, because I can more easily move it vertically or using the arrows here in the gumball, as you can see, and I can snap it all the way down here, right? So I can see it better here. Let me just make this a little wider as well. So so whichever view that is easier for you to select from and reference, I will do the opposite here. In a perspective, I select the point and move it vertically. Escape. I'm not going to use any snap here or grid snap, and just move it freely down until I can see on the right view that it's actually starting to align more properly along the sketch that I have. As you can see that actually I use that third point. I need to use this point now and move it down to start to kind of go and align with my curve a little bit. This one perhaps a little bit up. And you can see that I'm selecting the proper kind of points there in the perspective view as well. But the alignment is proper. Now I need this guy to go a little bit up. And this is basically where it needs to be. And I have this one, which is need to go up a little. And then where is the last one? This one is kind of covering. There's the last one, which according to the elevation need to go a little bit up here. So as you can see here, these curves starting to kind of, this one also need to go up a little. It's just a matter of aligning, and you can see that some of these seem like they are on the way. So if they are, just go to the layers and select the sketches, for example, that are not relevant for us, for example, and turn them off, or you can just even change the transparency level. So I can select this one and go to material and make the transparency a little bit more so that I can see my points a little better here in the elevation. So whatever that could help in this case. And I can see that this curve, this one, this point, oh, because I'm looking at this other curve here, that curve segment, or this curve. Let me explode it. I was looking at the back there and trying to change some points there, which I probably shouldn't be doing just yet. But if I look at that curve, that probably looks all right, the red one. That's where kind of I want it to go. And in the elevation, it's looking good as well here. So that's, I just don't like that this one is here. Let's see if this looks a little better. Yep. And now the back part of the curve need to follow that line here. So now I need to adjust this part of the curve and P on, or points on, to turn the control points on. And now I just need to kind of move them up. So this end point here need to move vertically to go all the way up here, right? And this one up here. And you can start following the intended slope. Third one is this one. And sometimes it's easier to select in one view than the other. And I can see this one, curve point, that need to go a little bit up too. So at the end of the day, it's the kind of contour that you want to kind of follow, but I'm looking at it here and it looks a lot, you know, like what I intended for it to be. Maybe this one, you can move it a little bit to the left here just to create that crease. You know, you can go with it. So that's, you know, we can adjust all day, but for now, I think this is good. Let me turn off the sketches here and the mask scaffolding. And you can see that the roof is here. The only thing is that this end doesn't match with this. So it depends on how far you want it to go. So maybe you can adjust this one to meet and snap to that point. And you need to turn on the snap points, the O snap option, and just snap to that end. And this way you can have it all as a continuous kind of curve here, right? Okay. So once that part is created, this is basically half the roof. Let's just make sure also this bottom part is also matching, and that end as well. So they can all join as one curve. You can see here in the sketch, if I turn the sketches on, you can see the little curve here that actually kind of identify how the curve goes from this direction. So I want to do that. I will, it's a good reference curve. It help us create a better kind of surface in the end. So let me just go to the top view here and plan. And this is the kind of little part that I want to also generate as a curve. So I'll lock my sketches and create a curve that goes from perhaps somewhere on that curve. So if I have the near here down there, if I have the near O snap, I can go near and snap to my curve somewhere, and then start perhaps near my curve there, right? If you see in the elevation how this curve was basically going up and down basically. So if I go perspective view here, or I'll do my named views here. You'll see that's the curve that I just created, and it really not what I was hoping. I'll just create a plane, and I'll just project it to that plane so that it will be in the proper location. So this is the project to that plane. So project command, and select my curve and project it to that plane. This looks a lot better now in terms of placement, but except that I need the endpoint of it to be somewhere on this other curve. So I'm just gonna select it and just snap it somewhere near that curve. Just good enough. Select that. Now I have that top curve that basically give me some indication, and you can see it just really, that's the front, but from the top view, you see it is following the sketch that I have here when I change to the top view, roughly. Okay. So setting this up, let me turn off the sketches. They're really distracting. And I have my curves here as guidelines to create my surface now. And so there are different ways to create a surface in Rhino, NURB surface. And we will just try to explore a few different ways, and this would be a really good, exercise for it. Before we do that, it's a good idea to check if our curves are smooth. And the good way to do that is to use an analyze and curvature graph. And as you can see, it's white, so it's not very clear. So let me change the colors here. Let me just first make this a little smaller. I don't need it to be that big. And if you go to options, and remember that we, in the under appearance colors, we changed the background to white, and that made the some of the things that we see not very clear. And I don't know if I changed the tracking colors here, so I don't know what the graph is using. Let me see. Okay, well, that's fine. I guess we'll have to be able to just, let's go shaded view, and perhaps will give us a little bit better curvature graph. Select that curve, and as you can see, this you can see how the transition is going from one end to the other, and you can see there is like a little bit of kind of sharp transitions here and here. You can make the curve a little smoother by changing the control point locations, but if you don't want to do that, you can also change the rebuild the curve to be a degree 5, and that is one way to smooth the curve. So you use rebuild, and you select the curve you want to rebuild, and what you change is the degree, but maybe add control points to be able to stay as close to the original curve as you can. And okay, and you can see that the graph, it looks a lot more smoother here, and that helped us create in the end a more smooth looking surface. So this is a little something to pay attention. It wasn't a bad curve, but this is one thing to look at. I can check the add object here and add this curve to also look at it and see how it looks. And I perhaps can also rebuild this curve to be degree 5. Okay. And again, it looks a little bit more smoother. So if you don't use degree 3, use degree 5, and this works well with NURBS curves. Don't use degree 4. And those curves look good here. Let me see that curve as well, since we're on it, rebuild it. And also we're going to use maybe 8 preview. It is close enough. Degree 5 as well. So all my curves are smooth now, and they look good. And I can now use mirror. Let me see. When I rebuild the curve, this one went out, and I just need to kind of put it back to one of the ends as a good reference. I can mirror my curve here and this one as well, and mirror those along here to create the full outline of my roof. I should have mirrored this as well. So I have some reference curves to tell my surface to follow. And one command that you can use to do that is the patch command in Rhino. Patch uses some reference curves to generate a surface for you. And as you can see, my first attempt is created this surface. I can, you know, just adjust it a little bit, but I'll go with the defaults just so that we can examine that surface. What are some of the things you notice about the surface? Just unmute and tell me, you know, straight away. What are some of the things that you notice about the surface that
it's not symmetrical?
It's asymmetrical. Yeah, there is no symmetry here, and the intention is to be symmetrical. So it's a problem. And how can we create a patch that is symmetrical? So let's have another go. Let's try to use these other curves to see if it's helpful. But instead of using that, I want to keep that surface so we can also examine it later in terms of curvature. So that was our first patch attempt. Let's do another patch. And this time that we use the curves, but we use that other middle curve as well. These two curves that gave us a little bit more detail here. And let's preview. That goes through these two curves. It probably a little better, but we still suffer from the same problem. It's still asymmetrical surface that we have here, and that's not good. So, and the other thing that you notice about these surfaces is that the direction of the parameterization, the ISO curves, the direction, is also not in any direction that is parallel or matching to our site. One of the things that patch uses is you can use a starting surface, and that gives a lot more clue about the direction of your parameters and maybe some of the symmetry information that we need. So I'll create a plane here, starting from one end. I'll snap to the end with the smart track and this corner, and be able to create some sort of a plane here, top, obviously a spiral, but I'll try to angle it so that it's roughly going through my roof. So I'll just select that and just move it, this edge from the middle here to the middle here. Now I have a surface that is, you know, a little bit giving me a bit of a clue about the parameters that I'm using, and also for the patch to go through. Maybe even move this and move from the middle here to the center there. So it's kind of a little bit more an indicative of where the patch direction should go. So bright. I'll just move it to the maybe the sketches part, but I need to kind of turn it on. Oh, just change the color of it from by layer to some a little bit lighter color. Yeah, maybe black is better. Yeah. Let's use ghosted. So now I have a bit of a surface, and that will help me a lot to create a better patch. So I'll run the patch command, and I'll use my curves. Same curves I used before. But then when it says select the starting surface, I select my plane preview, and I already can see that, you know, it's a better symmetry. The direction of the parameters are much better. Let's go OK. This is a much better surface that we just created just by using a reference surface to start with. So that's not bad. Let me just go to rendered so I can see the surface maybe a little better, not much better. Ghosted. And maybe there is a little bit of, you know, unsmoothness here. So the level of control is not that great unless if you create more geometry, more guiding lines. Let me turn this so that you know, the patch goes through it, and then also how tight it goes through it is also important to as an indication. Maybe that curve, that part, needed to kind of go up a little to generate a little bit more kind of smooth transition. Just to create that, because that probably part of the reason why it ended up looking a little bit bulgy, I think. So that probably gonna look a little better if we do that part. And also if we join these two curves, join, and as you can see, there is a kink here. So this, one of the things you can do is just to delete the kink, delete that part, and make that curve a little bit more continuous. And then we can just snap this to the middle of the other curve. So it's just a matter of some basic adjustments to make it a little bit more better. We can perhaps join these two as well. And the joint point is kind of sharp. And actually, I'm interested to show you how it looks in the graph. Go to Analyze, Curve, Curvature Graph on, and you can see here how this graph and this graph are not continuous at all, except in the point they join. This is what we call a kink. This is where you'd want to perhaps delete that point to create a bit of a smooth kind of curve right there. Perhaps move these 2 points a little bit out to, and the better reference curves you have, the better the patch will end up looking. So where is my plane? Did I put it in the sketch part? Oh, the plane disappeared. Okay, well, I'll draw the plane again. Plane from here to here. And sub-object select, move it from the center to the base here. And perhaps, just also sub-object select that and move that edge from the mid to that point. Now I have a good reference plane, and I'll just use ghosted view, change the color of this guy because it's kind of distracting. And then I'll recreate my patch. See if we have a better look, creating a better surface there. Those are the curves. And I'll select a starting surface and preview. And as you can see, the surface is starting to look much, much nicer now that I have a little better curves to define it. And you can change if you don't want it to be too detailed. You want it to be a little bit less ISO curves. That could, you can change that to be the number of spans in the U and V direction, so that reduce the density. And the amount of stiffness, how stiff or how close do you want to be to the curves, the guiding curves. If you don't care as much, you can relax it and you go okay, and that's a good looking surface, right? I can see this symmetry, but in order to be sure that I have a symmetrical kind of surface, I can go and do a bit of a false color analysis for the curvature. Curvature under surface, under analyze, surface, curvature analysis, and then you select your surface. And here you can see the symmetry more clearly. I'd adjust the mesh to be maybe 5,000 here, the minimum initial grid quads. Just make it a little bit smoother. You can even make it higher if you have the calculation power here. Just make it a lot smoother. And mean curvature give you an idea about kind of the transition, and you can auto range. And you can see that, the transition between the colors seem to be gradual. You can see the symmetry here. There are no anomalies there. And the Gaussian curvature analysis, auto range again, it does help showing you which areas have curvature more than 0 or more or less. Although the range is really small, but the green parts roughly tell you that they are constant curvature, which can be unrolled, and you can easily create panels on these areas without much cost. Get out of the surface analysis here, but I can see the symmetry. I can see the flow, the range. I can see here a bit of an abrupt kind of change in color, but this is because I wanted to kind of follow that kind of transition that is a little bit sharp. But all in all, it looks good. And this is a good surface that was created with a patch. I know I spent a long time on this, but it's kind of an important subject, and it's kind of harder to pick. So that surface I will basically put into the roof of the house. I'm turning on the roof, and I will change it from the roof scaffolding to the actual roof. And I'll make the house as my current, turn off my scaffolding. And if you see here, that the roof is actually going through the building, but we can adjust the walls of the building at the end towards, you know, once we create all the details. But if you want to quickly change that intersection or deal with it, you can do an extend surface to a boundary. So I can do extend surface, and the edge, I need to explode first this, right? This is the part that, so extend surface and select an edge to extend. And you want to actually, you want to extrude it to a boundary, but if you just want to extend it, then actually we could have done it without exploding. I'm just gonna select the top curves of my building, and I will just move them upwards to intersect with the roof altogether. And I'll use trim. That's, I think, easier here. The cutting surface is my roof, and I can trim that part of my walls. Press enter. Remember, if I select my walls and go back to the area, it's get adjusted based on the new kind of intersection. Now I have, with the rendered, I have a really very quick view of my full mass. Perhaps I can apply, you know, a material here. Let me expand that to make it stand out a little bit for the roof. Perhaps it is metal, and perhaps the color is, I don't know, brass or copper. It's probably strong, but it's very reflective as well. And you can quickly assign certain kind of, that's probably a bit too much. Let me make it more like an aluminum. Oh, I don't know if that made a difference. The walls, we can also apply material. It could be paint, and a certain color paint that we want for the walls, and just to quickly be able to apply certain, for the floors can be concrete perhaps, and we can just, I'll put plaster here with a certain color that is, you know, for the floors, kind of grayish or dark gray. And this will just quickly give us kind of an idea, and I still don't like the metal here. It's too polished. I perhaps want to give it a bit of a color here. Let's go with the bronze. So that you just get an idea about the general mass, and you know, how does it sit within your site. I can select my site as well, and maybe just apply quick color to it, and you know, just so that I perhaps kind of greenish. Did I apply it to it? Oh, this applies not to the, okay, let's see where it is. It's actually in the split site. So the split site is here. This is the one. And I needed to apply the material there. And I'll just want to apply some color. I'll make it brighter here. Maybe kind of greenish color. Just to give me an idea of, you know, what my building is and what it looks like. And obviously this is, the rendering doesn't have all the ray tracing information. You can have a quick render here through render, And that will give you a little better kind of look at your building. It takes a little bit more time. But the general idea is you examine the mass, you apply basic materials, and the idea is not to really have a full view of your final building, but just so that you can reflect on it, you can edit it, change it, and go from there. Some other ways to create the roof, maybe we have enough time, which give you more control other than patch, is to use the loft command. And it is also one of the other functions I wanted to show you is history, which I want you to use it with care, because you can have certain geometry based on other geometry, and then you change the original geometry without knowing, and it update your resulting geometry, and you don't know what happened and why. So when you use history, be very intentional, mark it, make sure you understand that you used history there. But the advantage is if you create some curves to use as basis for your loft, which is a surface, and then you change the input curves, you can you can immediately change your output surface and be able to analyze it in real time for curvature and what have you. You can also use in the loft, you can control the direction of your ISO curves. So instead of, in our case, was following the plane and was kind of trimmed surface or patch, you can have a non-trimmed surface, which, again, you'll have a better control this way and be able to get, better curvature result, maybe create strips on the roof to be able to panel it. So depending on your end goal, even the symmetry, you have better control over it using a loft. So I think just because we're running out of time here, I'll leave it to you to go through the loft way of creating the roof. And I did send the second file, which includes all the different ways to create the roof using different surface creating method. We did go through the visualization part by trying to view in using different display modes and also using the rendering. The post effects are interesting as well. If you want to add certain effect to your scene really quickly, once this finishes the render here, you can just say I want to add a bit of a fog, a glow, some glare. I don't know if this one works here, but you can add noise, perhaps. So some of them will take a little bit of time to calculate. But the idea is that once your render is done, you can see some drop shadow here that happened because there's some ray trace calculation there that you don't see in the viewport. But yeah, so at that point, I'll just delete this one, go back here. It's just because in the middle of an operation here, so I'll just let it finish. If you have any questions, now is a good time for it before we wrap up today's session. Let me know if that has been helpful, if there are other topics we need to focus on. Next week, I guess we will start with the detailed. Oh, that was the glare calculation that took a bit of time here. So, and we added a bit of noise as well, but we did some of the concept analysis in terms of the surfaces as well, but we all know how to extract some 2D drawings. Do check the one day, the sun animation analysis. This is nice to also use for concept. But starting, well, next week, we're going to start with the detailed modeling. So try to complete the concept part. And if you have any questions, obviously you can comment on the document or email me, and we can address it the first 10 minutes of next session as well.